Hey guys, it's Jason, JC316. It's been a while since my last video, but I've been busy. It's been more about speed than actually taking the time to show what's going on, so I apologize for that. Today I'm going to be showing y'all how to change the knock sensors on the LS1 small block. This motor came from 97 to 02, I think. The LS6 is the same way. I think the LS2 is the same way. I've touched on this before with the Silverados, but it's a little bit different in the F-bodies. So, yeah, this is on my 98 Firebird. So anyway, my knock sensors are bad and they have to be changed. So first thing we got to do is get the air lid out of the way. These can be different on different cars, like mine's definitely not stock, but they're all pretty much the same. You pop the hatches and disconnect the air and that, and then where'd my screwdriver go? There it is. And then we got to take this guy here loose, just a flathead screwdriver. And, well, that's a problem on mine. I need to get that tightened up. And be kind of careful with your mass air. You don't want to break that. And set that aside. Alright, next up, we're going to be taking the throttle cable and cruise control cable off, which you just slide it forward and then this piece slides off. At least that's how they normally work. And then this one just slips off there. And we'll wind up taking these off. Okay, next step, just pop the IC and the TPS cables off. Do that. I'm gonna have to get some other tools. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. So the next thing we're gonna do is take the cable off here, which there are two 10mm bolts. You can disconnect them by pressing that little tab in and slipping the cable off, but I just prefer to get it out of my way. So I've already cracked those loose. Now, on factory LS1 cars, there will be an EGR valve going in right there. You'll have to take that off. Someone has deleted it on this particular car, so I don't have to worry about it. And just set that out of the way. Alright, next thing we're going to have to do is either take the fuel rail off or disconnect the line. Now, there's two ways of doing this from what I hear. One way is you can take the four 10mm bolts off from the fuel rail and set it off to the side. Personally, I don't want to bend my fuel line and all that crap, and it's not that difficult to take loose. There's only one line. So if you're going to take the rail off or disconnect the rail and leave it attached to the intake, you're going to want to bleed off fuel pressure there. Now, my check valve is bad in the trunk, so I got no pressure up here right now, or the trunk area of the fuel pump. So bleed off pressure there, and then we'll take that line off, and you'll have to, looks like there's some stupid rubber piece there that'll have to be moved out of the way, and then you'll use one of these guys. And how this works is you just clamp it on and slide it up in there, and it'll release the clips, and you pull the line right off. This takes both hands to do, so I'll be back as soon as I get that off. Alright, so line's disconnected and just folded out of the way here. Now there's some type of evap control circuit right here. There's a clip there, or alternatively a clip here. Since this clip is already nearly out, I'm just going to take it off here. And what you'll do is you'll give it a little push right there to slide the clip out, and then this, and that just pulls off. And this is already loose on my. Alright, so those rails are done. Now we have to take the fuel injector power connectors off, as well as this guy. And this guy you just push up on and well, push up and slide out. Okay, to disconnect the GM style clamps, there's a little spring, and you push in on that spring and the connector comes right off. So go ahead and do that on all remaining 7 of them, and the wiring should be done, and we'll get ready to pull the intake. Be right back. Alright, before you get to the passenger side electrical connectors, there'll be a couple of vacuum hoses to get out of the way. Namely this guy and the one right up under it. These just pull off. Then you may have clips on yours, but mine doesn't. So you can just slide those guys out of the way, and that'll give you access to the electrical connectors on the passenger side fuel injectors. So, be right back. Okay, so we're just about ready to pull the intake. There are 2 more lines you're going to have to worry about, and these are water lines. They feed into the throttle body. There's one there, and there's one here. So, you can try to take them loose now, or you can loosen off on the intake bolts first to try to give you a little more clearance to get away from this upper radiator hose. So, the intake bolts, there are 10 of them. They're 8mm, and they're 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is back up under there. Way back up under there. It's at the very back, and same story there. Coming forward, they should be pretty loose, and you should be able to take all of them but the back 4 out. So take them out, set them aside, and I'll show you how to deal with the back 4 and leave them in while still being able to get the intake out. So be right back as soon as I get these loose. Okay, all the bolts are loosened off on my intake, and as you can see, the intake is nice and loose now. Okay, for the back 4 bolts that you cannot remove, the easiest way of doing this is to get a rubber band and put it between the bolts and lift them up. The rubber band will hold the bolts up and allow you to slide the intake out without them dropping down on you. So the last 2 things we got to do before the intake is removed is to take the water lines off. And these are just the crappy squeeze clips. Make sure you have a drain pan below, because you're going to get some spillage. And just pop them loose. And they may be a little bit stuck, so give it a little jiggle with a pair of pliers. Break it loose. Well, no spillage for me. So, well, a little bit. There it goes. And same thing on this side, it's right there. So I'll take that off and we'll pop the intake out. Alright, there's one more guy I forgot about. It's the primary vacuum line going to the power brake booster. So, it's attached to the back side of the intake. You can't even see it from here. So rather than try to disconnect it back there and fight those stupid clips, I'm just going to pull it loose from the brake booster and it'll hiss at me. And feed the line back through, and then just pull the intake out. And the intake, to get it out, just kind of pick up on it and slide it toward the front of the car and just work it a little bit and it'll come right out. You don't have to worry about water, as this is a dry intake. So, be right back. And I'm lying to you again. There is a map sensor connector back there. It's there. And a vacuum line that hooks up right there. and then the intake will pop out. So go ahead and get this guy out of the way. Okay, so that's mainly if you needed to change the intake gaskets. They're on the flip side and they're rubber. I highly recommend changing them if you're in here, just cause, I mean, you don't want to mess with that. Okay, now your knock sensors. You got the knock sensor plate and the connectors that sit on top of them. Now, as you can see, mine's been pinched off, which is probably the reason why I'm getting my knock sensor codes. And you can see how disgusting it is under here. I need to clean all this out, and don't let any of it drop down into your intake ports. So I'm going to get that cleaned up. Somebody has already done the GM TSB, which is to fill up the wells with silicone to stop them from rusting. So I'm going to go ahead and clean all this out and pry this crap off and get it cleaned up, and I'll show you what it takes to get the knock sensors out. Be right back. Okay, so we're back. Got all the dirt and gunk cleaned up out of there, and I've got these pulled out. Now, GM recommends, and so do I, that whenever you change these knock sensors, you also change the wiring harness, and you can see mine's messed up in all kinds of places, and that's probably the reason for my codes. And you see it's pinched off pretty good there, and all that. So, just take that off and discard it. The harness runs, I think, $28. It's well worth it. You don't want to be back in here. Now, the knock sensors are down in those holes. There's 2 of them. One more thing I want to touch on with the harness. If you're doing a 98 like this, one will just peel off, the other one will have a locking tab here. Now, I am switching this over to the 99 style harness and knock sensors. Direct plug and play swap, and the sensors are a little less sensitive to noise, so you won't have this code quite as often on a 98 if you switch to 99 sensors. So the knock sensors are down in the hole, and they're 22mm heads. Now, one of the more common reasons for these knock sensors to go bad is water will come down off from the cowl, go under the intake, and pool down in there. That's the main reason for the RTV TSB. If they rust out and you leave the head in the block, you're going to have to take this plate off and get to them that way. And the plate looks like 10mm bolts. Pop it off. You'll have to take the steam tube system out of the way, which is 4 10mm bolts there. And you'll get to it that way. Yeah, that'll be a little harder. I'm praying that mine doesn't do this to me. And they look fairly new, so I was hoping they're not. So I'm just going to give it a little twist. I might have to use both hands, but unscrew those, then we'll screw the new ones in, and yeah, we should be done. Alrighty, I'm back. The front knock sensor came right out. The back one, the last person to do this job fucked it up royally. So I get to show you how to take the valley cover off. Like I said before, it's a total of 14 10mm bolts. You gotta disconnect the steam tube, which connects the heads on all 4 corners, and then unscrew all of these. And there's probably a seal under here that we're gonna have to redo. This may actually help you because sometimes I think the seal leaks. So I'm gonna start unscrewing all of these, and I'll be back. Alrighty. So after you pull that, there'll be a metal gasket underneath. It looks reusable. I'll probably smear some RTV on it just to be safe. And that's what we get with the knock sensors. Now, there are little rubber seals on the back side of that knock sensor cover, and you have to pull to get them loose if your knock sensor is stuck down in there. At least GM didn't make it solid. So we're looking at where the lifter should be on any normal motor, but not on this one. Cam's down in there, so be extra careful not to drop anything down either side there. Yeah, food call. Okay, so I got the old knock sensor out. It was just channel locks to loosen it off. The old gasket for the knock sensor cover looked pretty good. I went ahead and put a thin layer of silicone gasket maker under it just to be safe. I don't want it to leak. I replaced the steam tube lines. All their gaskets looked okay. If it leaks, I'll be back in here. What else? The knock sensors have been threaded in. They torqued to 15 foot-pounds. And what I'll wind up doing is resealing all this with gasket maker. Make sure no water gets down in there. And routing this to where the intake won't crush it. Okay, when you're redoing the intake, there is a specific sequence. You can find this on the internet, but it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and it's 44 inch-pounds the first run through, and 89 inch-pounds the second run through. So once you get all that hooked back up, you're done. Thanks for watching. I hope it helped.